Velocicoaster, Hagrid's, Nintendo. Amidst the newer additions to theme parks, sometimes the older rides fall out of mind. Today, though, I'd like to go and look back at some of those rides, and how despite their age, they still live on to be a theme park masterpiece. Today's story will focus on Men in Black Alien Attack, a 25-year-old shooter-style dark ride that takes you on a journey from the 1964 World's Fair into the MIB headquarters, where you find yourself defending Earth from an alien invasion. When it comes to the first reason that helps make this ride a masterpiece, it is this story, as unlike other rides which may feature some story or a very broad sense of one, MIB's story is really well versed and pounded into the ride experience, fully immersing guests into that story and making sure that they are aware of it. This starts with the facade theme to the World's Fair, helping immerse guests and get them situated into the environment that they walked into. The next step in immersing guests into the story and making sure that they don't miss it is the pre-show element of it, helping transition guests from this World's Fair time period into the MIB headquarters. From there, guests are ushered into this headquarters queue, in which they are also further immersed with interactive elements and show scenes along the way, including aliens, as well as a big reveal of the atrium towards the end of the queue. During this time in the queue, especially towards the end, it becomes even more ingrained in the guests' minds of what they are being signed up to do, in which they are required with initially a target practice to see if they can be a part of the MIB team, as well as what the red button is and why it could be important towards the end of the ride, providing some nice foreshadowing. During this ride experience, it unfortunately turns out to be more than a training exercise. Our guests are then fully immersed into the story beyond some cardboard cutouts into fully 3D and well thought out two-story environments, immersing guests in this alien attack. To help keep this ride experience interesting throughout the rest of the ride itself does a great job of incorporating several aspects to help make it intriguing along the way, including guests taking over the other ride vehicle, something we'll talk more of later on, as well as the end of the ride, in which guests press the big red button to help combat a giant big alien towards the end to help keep the ride even more exciting before continuing guests onwards to the ending scenes of the ride, which vary depending on your score. Speaking of these multiple endings, it is another great aspect of the ride in which the ride has great re-rideability. On the surface level of this is the score-based aspect of the ride, in which you are constantly trying to outbeat your own high score, as well as competing with others in your vehicle and a neighboring vehicle as well. Likewise, there are so many targets for you to hit, as well as areas to look at and explore, that there is so much areas for you to keep going back in it and always seeing something new. In addition to this, there is not just one track for you to ride and enjoy, but rather two, providing you with a similar yet slightly different ride experience, both of which have their own unique show scenes to help encourage re-rideability even more. Speaking of different show scenes, towards the end of the ride, Will Smith will inform riders based on their score, which something encourages guests to not only score higher, but also see different outcomes to it, as based on how the individual scores in the ride vehicle itself, as well as compared to the other ride vehicle, a series of different outplays will play, as Will Smith, seen on the screen, will tell guests if they did good or bad and how they should improve. To make this ending even more special, the ride vehicle then goes into phase one of two show scenes, in which they either experience an alien making their suit, or a different alien telling them that they need to do better next time. This is then followed by seeing how well the car ranked overall and if they were a Galaxy Defender, as well as one final show scene in which Will Smith wipes a memory and guests are left wondering if they are alone in the universe. The next area that helps make this ride a masterpiece is the ride vehicles itself, as unlike most rides even today, in which the ride vehicle is more of just a method of transporting you across several different show scenes, this ride vehicle is incorporated into the ride experience, and at several points is directly mentioned. For instance, during one scene, guests showed that aliens have overtaken the other ride vehicle and are in there in disguise. This is then followed by guests aiming and shooting at the other ride vehicle, in which as they hit it, they will spin, in which what the guest thinks are aliens shooting back at them, trying to hit their ride vehicle as well, but make their ride vehicle spin as well if it gets hit. This is then followed by the big alien ending, in which guests get to hit the red button on the ride vehicle, in which it causes it to spin out of control, although this will happen regardless of which it is pressed or not, helping end to a climactic ending to a thrilling adventure through the New York streets. The next aspect that helped make this ride stand out today is the immersion aspect of the ride, as this ride has show scenes that are not only all around you and extremely well detailed to the point where you can enjoy the dark ride by itself without the interactive shooter style aspect of it, but are also well opened and wide, allowing you for a great view of all of your surroundings. To further sell the immersion aspect of the ride, guests are aiming at targets which are hidden within the animatronics itself, something that is often rarely done within a blaster-style dark ride, which most of these rides opt for a more visible target. However, these often break the illusion and often feel out of place within the show scene, with the ride itself often come up with some half-baked excuse as to why the targets are the way they are. Universal, though, not only made it apparent that the targets are the aliens, but helped further sell this immersion aspect by hiding it within the animatronics. As a result, guests not only know what the targets are, but also don't think to why they are in a shooter-style ride with their shooting at targets, but rather just shooting at aliens. The last aspect that I want to talk about that helps make this ride a masterpiece is its blend to make sure that the rides are not only well themed, but have a high capacity as well, with each ride dispersing 12 guests at a time, consisting of 2 6-rider vehicles. Outside of the high ride vehicle capacities within the vehicles itself, the ride experience also consists of 2 separate tracks, helping provide Universal a great way to keep the ride running if one of these tracks has to go down, whether for unplanned maintenance or planned maintenance, and help keep the ride operational during this time. As well, there will be times in which Universal will have to close the whole ride for refurbishment due to something with either the show scenes as a whole or the individual ride mechanics like the switch track, which takes both tracks into the maintenance bay. This is fairly rare. Likewise, the vast amount of animatronics helps make it easy for a Universal creative to easily take out an animatronic or two for maintenance to help fix up the figure without its pressing presence being that noticeable in the ride experience itself. Despite this ride though being a fantastic iteration of Men in Black and bringing it into the theme park world into a masterpiece of a ride that still holds up today, it has yet to be built again in any other Universal resort. But why is that? Well, to get an answer for this, I reached out to the ride's creative director, Dave Cobb, and it's a little more complicated than you might think. In his words, it did not happen at Universal Studios Hollywood because at the time, there was no place to put a massive show building. Supposedly, alternative concepts were considered, but nothing that Universal or Sony liked. Also, it's not a Universal property, so there's a licensing to consider. More money, Sony's strategy for the brand, etc. Fast forward to now, where Universal Studios Hollywood is more willing to use studio space for park expansion, but the MIB brand, as far as I know, is being sunsetted at Sony. Building upon this, when it comes to the ride building size, the ride building itself is huge, consisting of 85,000 square feet. In fact, this plot of land is so big that it was initially considered for the Jurassic Park River Adventure before the plan was moved over to Islands of Adventure. And while this is great for the ride experience, it does come with some drawbacks as mentioned, with it being sometimes hard to include it into other existing parks that have especially already been built. That said, there is still the opportunity to build it into other parks that have not yet been built and set up yet. One of these was Universal Studios Dubai, something in which the ride itself during the MLB's heyday was planned to be built into it, this time in a different section with a similar story yet a different facade to help it blend in into the New York section of the park. Unfortunately though, this plan was scrapped along with the rest of the Dubai resort as a whole. Overall, due to the great execution of this ride, including aspects like re-rideability and immersing guests into the story, Men in Black Alien Attack still holds up to be a great testament of time and so immersing guests and welcoming them 25 years later into a ride that's one of the best dark rides in the world